Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're in the pharmaceutical world, you're probably grappling with this paradox, right? How do you get hyperspeed, efficiency, massive scale,
Hmm.
but still stick to the toughest, like zero tolerance compliance standards anywhere?
Yeah.
So today, we're diving deep into, well, the solution, the digital coworker. We're talking AI agents, chatbots, and especially robotic process automation bots, RPA.
And we're really aiming to give you the blueprint for getting this right. Because, putting a new digital workforce into an industry ruled by GXP and FDA audits, that's not just some simple IT project.
No, definitely not.
It needs almost military-grade structure.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to take what the sources say and boil it down into a framework. How do you build, how do you staff, and how do you prioritize an RPA Center of Excellence, the CoE?
Right, the code.
Making sure governance, scalability, and that super strict regulatory stuff are baked in from the word go.
Exactly. That's the core tension, isn't it? It's about speeding up decisions, getting rid of those, crushing routine tasks.
Yeah, the repetitive stuff.
So your really skilled people, your human talent, can actually focus on, well, strategic work, things that add real value.
Right.
So let's kick things off with the strategic why. Forget the buzzwords for a second. What are the actual measurable, cold, hard results that make CEOs put this massive shift at the top of their list?
It really comes down to those measurable returns. That's why this isn't just, a pilot anymore. It's a strategic imperative. These digital coworkers, they really act as an organizational force multiplier.
Okay.
If you look at, say, core operations and compliance, the numbers are, well, pretty staggering. Take Pyramol, for instance, that case study.
Oh, yes, I saw that one.
They automated 60 core processes, things like invoice processing, ERP validation checks, compliance reporting, all using these RPA bots.
60 processes. Wow. That sounds like it would remove a huge amount of just administrative drag. What was the actual outcome?
They reported saving 5,760 hours
Oh.
every single month, monthly. And that led to optimizing and, importantly, redeploying 36 full-time employees. So nearly 6,000 hours of admin work just gone, and 36 people moved into higher value roles.
Okay, that's genuine transformation using automation, not just, trimming headcount.
Exactly. And the speed impact.
Yeah.
That's maybe even more critical, especially when you look at pharmacovigilance and regulatory affairs.
Right, patient safety comes into play there.
Absolutely. This is where AI-powered digital workers start having a direct impact on patient safety. The sources show that case processing in PV, tracking and reporting adverse events, could be squeezed down from maybe a whole week.
A week.
Down to less than 24 hours.
Okay, taking a week's work and doing it in a day, that's huge. But hang on, when you inject that kind of speed into something so safety critical, it does raise a question. Where do the sources say the human safety net needs to be?
Yeah.
To catch potential algorithm errors or data issues.
And that's exactly where the CoE governance comes in. We'll definitely get to that in a bit. But specifically on the speed point, the human role changes, right? It shifts away from data entry, away from the actual processing.
Right.
It moves towards auditing, towards signal verification. The AI does the heavy lifting, the volume, the speed. The human provides that highly specialized regulatory judgment, that proactive risk management.
Which they can actually do because the signal detection is almost instant.
Precisely.
Okay, now let's talk scale, because this is where it gets almost, well, mind-boggling. R&D and drug discovery. The savings here can literally make or break a drug launch, can't they?
Oh, the scale is phenomenal. Look at Eli Lilly's example. They actually quantify the impact of AI-driven automation. Core areas like molecule design, natural language generation for reports.
And what do they find?
They stated this digital workforce saved them the equivalent of 1.4 million hours of work.
1.4 million.
Million. To put that into perspective, that's like 160 years of human work.
Wow. 160 years saved. That basically gives them a massive leap ahead on timelines compared to competitors. It really hammers home that this isn't just some IT tool, it's a strategic weapon.
Exactly.
And just generally across the board, the sources point to something like up to an 80% reduction in cycle times for compliance workflows.
Yeah.
So yeah, the why is crystal clear. Scale, speed, safety.
And that's the key difference. It's
Yeah.
driven by those business outcomes, not just the tech itself.
Okay, so we've established the strategic imperative. Everyone's on board with the why. Now let's move to the how. How do leaders actually build this engine room, the center of excellence? Especially in pharma, where, let's face it, a mistake can shut down production or trigger a really painful audit.
Right. The blueprint for the CoE It really has to start with structure and governance.
Mhm.
And the sources, they're pretty emphatic on this. The model, especially early on, should probably be centralized.
Centralized. Why is that so critical at the start?
You just need that control, that
Yeah.
standardization, and most importantly, that non-negotiable adherence to regulations. You simply cannot have sort of rogue bots popping up and creating compliance risks all over the place.
And when you say non-negotiable adherence, we're talking GXP standards, right? For listeners maybe not deep in QA daily, could you just quickly clarify what GXP means in this automation context?
Sure. GXP just stands for good practices,
Yeah.
good manufacturing practice, GMP, good laboratory practice, GLP, and so on. When you apply it to automation, it means basically every automated step that touches the product or critical data.
Okay.
It must be validated, it must be documented, it must be consistently repeatable, just like a human process. If a bot is handling, say, a batch record review, it has to meet the exact same quality standards a human signer would. If you lose that control, well, you undermine the entire GXP foundation.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it underlines why the org structure needs those C-suite champions you mentioned. Who are the absolute key roles needed to actually lead this thing?
Leadership is non-negotiable, absolutely. You start at the top with the executive sponsor, usually a senior VP, maybe even the CEO. They champion it, find the budget, sort out the big strategic roadblocks.
Right.
Then you need the head of RPA or the CoE lead. They're overseeing the whole strategy. And then, more tactically, the RPA champion who's driving the day-to-day implementation. But critically, this has to be cross-functional. You need leaders involved from the business side, from IT, definitely quality assurance, and of course, compliance.
Okay, and those regulatory frameworks,
Hmm?
the compliance team needs rock-solid policies, right? What specific standards are absolutely critical when they're designing these automated processes?
They need documented, standardized policies for basically everything. How you design automations, code review standards, validation protocols, how you handle data. And the bedrock compliance piece here is 21 CFR Part 11.
Part 11, electronic records and signatures.
Exactly. It dictates how electronic records and signatures are handled. If a bot is signing off on a step, that electronic action has to comply with Part 11. Without these standardized frameworks, without templates for things like business case justifications, you're just inviting audit findings, no matter how much time the bot saves.
So if you're a CEO listening, or maybe a CoE lead just starting out, what are, say, the top 3 or 4 actions you absolutely must take right away to make sure both the people and the tech succeed?
Yeah, it really boils down to the people and the culture side, I think. First, redefine job roles. Leaders have to actively plan how human talent gets redeployed. The bots handle the repetitive stuff, so people need training for more strategic thinking, more analysis.
Makes sense.
Second, upskill that talent. You have to invest, and probably invest heavily, in digital training so your current workforce can actually work with these digital coworkers effectively. It's collaboration.
Okay, so redefine roles, upskill talent. What else?
Third, prioritize change management. This is huge.
Yeah.
You've got to build that cross-functional buy-in we talked about, communicate the why, the value constantly. People won't adopt something they don't understand or, frankly, trust.
Right, the trust factor is key. And the last action is about getting some runs on the board quickly.
Absolutely. Start small, scale fast. Use pilot projects. Pick something that gives you a quick, undeniable win. That builds confidence fast, and it makes it much easier to justify the investment needed for scaling up rapidly.
That's a perfect transition, actually, to phase 3. Staffing the engine room, we've got the structure, but like you said, if the people in those roles don't have the specific skills needed for, say, a GXP environment, the whole thing can fall apart. Let's dig into that competency matrix you mentioned, foundational, intermediate, advanced.
Yeah, this role clarity is just vital, both for hiring the right people and for showing existing staff a career path. Let's take the process analysts. They're not just scribbling notes, right? They start with basic documentation, sure, but they need to quickly get to intermediate skills. Things like Lean or Six Sigma methodologies, maybe process mining tools.
And what's the end goal? What does an advanced process analyst look like in pharma?
They become the strategic architects of automation. They should be doing complex process audits, value stream mapping that cuts across different departments, and crucially, really sophisticated automation opportunity assessment, calculating the ROI accurately, assessing the regulatory risk before you even think about building a bot.
Okay. Now, what about the people actually building the bots, the RPA developer? Their job must be quite different in pharma compared to, I don't know, banking or insurance.
Oh, completely different. Their skill progression goes way beyond just basic scripting. Intermediate and advanced skills from RPA developer and pharma must include GMP validation.
Right, that GXP knowledge again.
They have to know how to write code and the documentation that will actually pass a tough manufacturing or quality audit. They need to handle complex workflow orchestration,
Yeah.
robust error handling, and all the documentation required under GXP. They're basically regulatory enforcers through their code. They're not just general developers.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's the ultimate gatekeeper, right? The business SME or the compliance lead. They seem to carry the highest risk.
They are arguably the reason that KBKD has to exist in this regulated space.
Okay.
They start foundational, understanding the standard operating procedures, the SOPs, but they quickly move to intermediate, actually applying GXP and GMP principles, doing risk analysis, and critically preparing the automated processes for inspections by the FDA or EMA.
And at the advanced level.
At the advanced level, that compliance lead is basically defining the entire regulatory strategy for automation across the company. They are the ones making the final call on what is safe and compliant enough to automate.
And the sources really emphasize a strict checklist for hiring these roles, don't they? Confirming certifications, RPA developer certs, PLC, Lean Six Sigma, but the absolute must-have is that demonstrable, hands-on experience with GXP and 21 CFR Part 11. You can't just learn that from a book quickly.
That's absolutely right. You need people who've lived it. And we shouldn't forget the change manager either. Their development is crucial for getting people to actually use the automations.
Good point.
They go from basic communications and training delivery to developing proper adoption strategies. And ultimately, at the advanced level, they're driving full-scale organizational change programs, helping to build a truly digital culture where people and bots work together smoothly.
Okay, so we've designed the QE structure, we've staffed it with the right highly skilled people, but in a big, complex pharma company, analysis paralysis can set in. You've got dozens of departments potentially screaming for automation. How do leaders pick that critical first process? Where do you actually start the pilot?
Yeah, that selection process has to be super disciplined. You're focusing on minimizing risk while maximizing that quick value we talked about.
Right.
So you look for functions that have high volumes of manual, repetitive tasks,
Okay.
strict and absolutely essential compliance needs, clear process repeatability, so the bot knows exactly what to do every time, and importantly, functions where the ROI is easy to measure. Those are your fast wins.
So which functions consistently tick all those boxes in the pharma industry?
Well, quality assurance and compliance almost always comes out near the top. It's ideal, really, because of the immediate risk reduction potential. Automating things like deviation reporting or maybe batch record review steps, where accuracy is just paramount, typically shows a 30 to 60% faster cycle time.
Right, and that builds huge trust right off the bat.
Exactly. Then, as we noted, Pyramid started with supply chain and inventory.
Which gave them those big hour savings early on.
Yep. Supply chain offers really tangible operational savings. Think complex invoice processing, maybe aspects of demand forecasting, shipment creation. The hours saved are just very easy to quantify, which helps justify scaling up to the execs.
Okay. And we should definitely loop back to patient safety again. Pharmacovigilance and safety.
PV automation is often a necessity just because of the sheer volume. I mean, if you're manually handling, say, up to 700,000 adverse reports a year, you simply have to automate parts of that.
Wow, 700,000. Yeah.
Yeah, the sources show that automation there can drive maybe 45% efficiency gains, serious cost savings, and it lets those highly trained PV specialists focus on analyzing the high-risk signals, not just data entry.
Makes sense.
And finally, you got clinical trials management. Notoriously document-heavy, incredibly complex.
And the regulatory bar there is perhaps the highest anywhere.
Precisely. So automating steps like patient data entry from forms, maybe site monitoring report collation, or managing the electronic trial master file, the ETMF, that provides enormous relief. You see time savings anywhere from, say, 45% up to 80% in those really regulated documentation steps.
So the strategy is clear then. Start with QA compliance, supply chain, PV, or clinical trials areas with high volume, high compliance needs, clear ROI. Use those wins from the pilots to build confidence across the organization, justify more investment, and then rapidly scale the automation out.
That momentum, that's really the key to making the KE a permanent, valuable part of the organization.
This has been a really definitive blueprint, I think. We've walked through everything from the strategic, why those CEO level benefits, right through the operational setup, the CoE structure, and then into the tactical execution, like picking those first pilot functions.
And if you look for the common thread, running through all the sources we looked at, keeps coming back to this.
Mm-hmm.
The real competitive advantage isn't just the software you deploy. Yes, the bots give you speed, they give you efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the necessity of redefining those human job roles and successfully upskilling your people. That seems to be what really determines long-term success.
So the true measure of success for this center of excellence, it isn't really the number of bots running or tasks automated,
No.
but how effectively the organization manages to transform its human talent so they can truly collaborate with this new digital workforce. That pivot from just doing administration to enabling real strategy, that's the provocative thought we want to leave you with today.